Milsurp Garage back with you with another of these Smith Wessons. I loved doing that video on the Model 29. That is one of my favorite firearms of all time. Very lucky to have that guy. And let's bring forth some other Smith Wessons, because there seem to be at least the tiniest bit of interest. This is the Model 19. Okay, 357 Magnum. It's a 1963 manufacture, 4-inch barrel. It's a Model 19-2. It's on Smith & Wesson's K-frame. K-frame. So these are the 3-screw models. 1, 2, and then there's one that's hidden. So 1963, that's what they were. 3-screw. And the story with these is that the model, the 38 had been around for a while at the turn of the century and was used a lot as a police gun. And, it definitely played that role way up into the 70s, into the 80s, that police still carried 38 revolvers. But originally, the 38 was getting a little bit of bad press around the mid-30s because, metallurgy had gotten better where they could load the 38 rounds a little bit hotter, but they couldn't really get away with that because, you start building better guns, so you amp up the pressures in your ammo, and then if you use that ammo in the older guns that didn't have that type of metallurgy when they were made, you're blowing up guns. So this is probably something that they probably had to deal with, like all through the years, as the ability to make guns stronger increased. You're still using the same ammo. Some of these, like the 38, had been around, like I said, since the turn of the century. So you get a lot of advancements in guns and not that much of an advancement with the round because it's just staying the same. Every once in a while they have to make some kind of little change, whether it's just going with a completely different caliber, something totally different, and inventing something different. Like, let's say when they did like 40 caliber, you know what I mean, or 10 millimeters, like that. They're just definitely amping up the pressures, but they're changing it completely. Smith & Wesson had some people that were advising them, and some people, very knowledgeable people, that would always be messing with the charges of the 38 ammo, that knew exactly what type of powder charge and how many grain bullet could make for a really nice improvement, to the 38. So Smith & Wesson got, and they said okay, and they actually entertained this, and they wanted Winchester to come in to develop the round. And like I said, this was in the mid-30s, and back then, even though they were stepping up to a more powerful 38 to make this, they were going to make a new round called the 357, and that their idea was, let's just make here's a 38, let's just make a round that's longer. Okay, so it didn't really have anything to do with, well, we need to fit more powder in here. I'm pretty sure they could have fit the same amount of powder in the 38, regular 38, but the reason why they made the round longer is because, we'll make it longer and we'll make different guns that they can handle. They can shoot the 38s if you want, but if you want to step up to the more powerful ammo, that would fit. But if you took an older 38, the 38 would fit, but if you went to put the 357 round in, it would stick out. It wouldn't fit all the way in. So that was a pretty good idea. This way you could kind of make them not backwards compatible, but forwards compatible, Smart. But even back then, they could not use this frame. This K frame could not be used. It wasn't deemed strong enough to handle it in 1935 when they were putting this together. So of course you remember our end frame 44 Magnum. This was the end frame. They had to use this frame for that first 357 Magnum. So when they made those, they worked great. Now for figure about till about the mid 50s. So figure 20 years later, a couple of other guys started to poke around, and they were saying, you know, I think we could do another improvement here. I think metallurgy has come far enough now where we can take this 357 round and we can bring it into the smaller K-frame, which was the frame that was normally for the 38. So it was basically like you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the power of a 357 and the lightness and the maneuverability of the 38. So that's where the Model 19 came in. The original 357s were called Model 27s. Those were the ones that were on the N frame. And then when they came down into the K frame, it's the Model 19. And man, let me tell you, this is a 4-inch barrel. This is, as far as I'm concerned, perfect for the 357. I like the 6.5-inch barrel on the 44, but the 357, the fact that they knocked this down onto a smaller frame, it's nice to have a bit of the shorter barrel, not a snub nose. I don't go for a 2-inch or a 1-inch barrel. Not that those are bad. Those are definitely cool for, like concealed carry guns and stuff like that. But for just me wanting to actually take it to the range and shoot it, and have semi-decent reliability with, to be able to shoot some targets and hit some bullseyes at, some yardage, 20 yards, something like that, and hit a target. The snub nose ones, they're a little tough. They're definitely made for just, being right there. But you gotta love these things. The quality of these guys, they're so awesome. They have this this semi-target trigger, it was called. It wasn't quite as wide as you see the trigger on the Model 29 I have that has the target trigger and the target hammer. This is called a semi-target trimmer, semi-target hammer. You see the hammer's kind of wide, but not crazy. You see, like, we can compare it here. Let's compare it to the one on the 44. You can see how wide that is and how incredibly wide the trigger is on there. And that's the target trigger and the target hammer. And this is what they called the semi-target trigger, semi-target hammer. Now, I don't know if there was a target hammer and a non, and this was just one that's in the middle. I don't know how many options they had. I look online and I see that they have these catalogs where you could, it's literally like a catalog that just catalogs every single option. With these things, as they move down through the years and they change things on them, so it's a Model 19, there'd be a Model 19, then there's a Model 19-1, 19-2, 19-3, 4, and so on. And at each revision, they would have things that they changed, and in these catalogs, they show what exactly the little things that they changed were. And it's kind of cool to see those things because, it is interesting. And, and you look down in here on the hinge and it'll tell you what, 19-whatever. It'll show you whatever it is that, whatever version you had was. And the little changes on the versions were pretty cool. But one thing that stuck was when you go a little older with these things, I think the cutoff date is 83 or something like that. But don't hold me to that. It's somewhere in the early 80s with the cutoff where they went from, when you look on Gunbroke for one of these, you're going to see a lot. You're going to see Smith Wesson Model 19 P&R. It'll have a date even, right? Whatever. It'll say 1976 P&R. The P&R means pinned and recessed. You might have even heard these things when you just see ads for them, and if you're not sure what that is, that's this pin that you see right there is a pin that when the barrel is screwed down, it's threaded. And when it seats, there's a pin that's driven through to hold it in place. The newer ones are crush fit on. I'm pretty sure like they're squeezed on, or it's like a resistance fit. And those are supposedly a quicker, easier, cheaper method, which just in everybody's eyes, quicker, easier, and cheaper, something that costs the company less, is quicker for them to do and easier for them to do, is usually not as good, usually. But the pin denotes that you're also going to see a recess here in the cylinders, and you're gonna notice that when you drop around inside, it's going to sit flush. It's going to be cutouts here so that the round sits flush with the cylinder, and that the non-recessed ones, you're going to see the rim of the cartridge visible when you look at it from end on after you load it. And not only that, there's going to be a much larger gap here because that rim is going to have to fit in there. So it's supposedly not quite the same tolerances, not as tight, and again, a cheaper way to manufacture the cylinder. I guess the jury's really out on whether or not it's not this. It affects the quality. Smith and Wesson to me never really seemed like a company that would tolerate things that affected the quality. Just for so many years, these things always stayed just so beautiful. They're like fine watches. That it'd be hard for me to believe. Everybody always says it, but it'd be hard for me to believe that it really affected it that much. But then recently, I did see some videos where there were some Smith and Wesson revolvers where the barrels, if you just sighted right down them, that you could see they were kind of offset or not centered in the gun properly, even, or whatever. And I know that was a little scary. But again, they don't have a 100% success rate in their manufacturing. I can imagine that they made a mistake here and there. So it could have just been somebody posted a video or something happened and then that got blown up. Who knows? So I don't want to say that if they're not pinned and recessed, they're not as good. But people definitely pay more, and there is a thing about these pinned and recessed ones where they're like, that's the way to go. You know what I mean? So if you're really interested in the collector value, or having something that's quote unquote special, the pinned and recessed versions would probably be something that you'd want to consider or take a look at to get one of the older ones. So this this underlug right here that protects the extractor rod is ejector rod. I got to get a book on like revolver nomenclature because I'm terrible. I'm like this doohickey right here. I just learned a few things. I learned that the part that the cylinder comes out on here is called the crane. That I learned. And that thing right there that ratchets the cylinder is called a finger. If I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that that's right. And I watched some videos that showed like how you check out these things if you're going to buy them. You check out like the timing so that as you pull back, you're going to hear 3 distinct clicks. Listen with me. And it's supposed to be very important to hear them just like that. That it's going to be, the first click is going to be that finger releasing, the second click is the finger going up against the cylinder, and the third click is the finger falling into one of the notches. And that timing has to be just like that. Or maybe the first click was it being released, and the second click was it falling into the notch, and the third click was it cocking all the way. I think that's what it was. But that was pretty cool. And then they showed how you shine a light, like you take like a flashlight like this, and you do, what people might think you're crazy, especially like if you're at a gun show and they see you doing this, but you're supposed to shine a light like that. And then, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this on camera. I'm like all over the place. I can't really hold it steady, but you're supposed to, there we go, and then you turn the cylinder like this. And then you're supposed to look in there on each one and make sure that, it's perfectly, that you're looking perfectly down and you don't see the edges of the cylinders here. And that was interesting. It was like a guide. Somebody had like a guide posted up on like, how to check one of these out at a gun show. Who the hell was that? It wasn't Down East Gunworks. It was, oh, you know who that was? That was Anvil. That was, man, I love watching that. Sea and Arsenal, and then he has the, I can't remember his name. Why can't I remember his name? Mark something. And, you know, the gunsmith that's on Sea and Arsenal. I can't get enough of that guy's videos. That guy, he has this thing where he talks about getting an apprentice, for an apprenticeship there. Man, I'd pay him to take an apprenticeship there. So yeah, that's the Model 19, ladies and gentlemen. You got serial numbers all over this thing. You got different kinds of grips. There's fat grips like this that are like the Target grips. There's thinner grips where you don't just see a strap through here. You'll also see here, metal through here, and that's where you'll see a screw. And on the bottom, there'll be a serial number. So those are different grips, like a scanter kind of grip, like thinner grips. Me, I got these big hands. I like the nice big grip. I like the nice large trigger, and that's why these things feel right like that, you know. And they'll always hold their value. I'll tell you that. And these things are just super strong. This one gets some kind of weird. It has some kind of weird rumor that they were getting damaged, that even some law enforcement agencies would tell their officers to train with 38s but carry 357s in them as duty ammo, and that's a little weird. I don't even like that. I don't even like the sound of that just right off the bat, just because you should definitely train with whatever you're going to carry, even if just so you're used to loading it. I mean, just because the rounds are a different size, but also just even the way it feels and how the recoil feels. Let me tell you, there's loads of difference between 38 and 357. I'm telling you right now. It's not a teeny bit of difference. It's a huge difference. You fire the 38 and you're like, well, that's pretty tame. That feels pretty good. That's very controllable and very pleasant. And then you fire the 357 and you're like, that's everything I just said, not. It's exactly what it is. It's not uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. It's not like you go like, well, yeah, there's a little bit more punch there or whatever. You know, you just like, the first one, you're going to just be like, damn, that word Magnum means something, you know, in that name, you know what I mean? So I would think you should definitely train with the ammo you're going to use, but apparently cracks would develop up here, like in this area. So that's the area to check it out. I looked at this thing. I don't see anything going on there. And then I read something that eased my mind that said, as long as you use heavy ammo, I think it's 158 grain is the heavy, or I don't know if it's heavy, it's just kind of like normal 357 ammo, 158 grain. But that some loadings, they start to be like lighter bullets, and like you would think heavier bullets would put more pressure on a gun, but it's really not true. It's the lighter bullets. Lighter bullet means the charge is more violent. There's more pressure. Somehow, I'm not a ballistic expert. I don't reload, but those guys, they would definitely be able to just rattle off exactly why that is. But I guess it just has something to do with there being a lot more energy imparted into the gun if the bullet is lighter. You know what I mean? And that's the story. Supposedly, if you stick with 158 grain ammo, you're not going to have a problem. And it's only when you step up to the heavier, the lighter. You step down to lighter ammo to get a faster bullet. That's when you start encountering problems with this particular model. I'm not saying everyone, but that this model, when it was made in 1963, was made before they really had they started messing around with lighter bullets and that type of thing, and faster bullets and higher cylinder pressures. Right, so I just read, stick with 158 grain, you'll be fine. I thought it'd be interesting to bust out my Hornady cartridge reloading handbook and just show the difference in the dimensions between 357 and 38, if I could get there. Oh, so this is 38. All right, let me just zoom in a little bit. There's the numbers for 38. And here's the numbers for 357. So you can see it's pretty much the same. 440, 060, 058. The rim is a little bit different, a little bit, I mean, by 200ths. That's not really that much, but you could see 0.379, 0.379. So the bullet width is exactly the same. It's just 0.1290, 0.1155. So there you go. You could do your math and find out exactly how much longer the case is. Just a little bit, but just enough to see the 38 Special was introduced in 1902 in their military and police model revolver. So I mean, it came right out in 02 strictly for police, you know what I mean? And then they went to these press plus P pressures and stuff like that. Like, they had started messing with it, but it just got to the point where they just needed to have a different, they had to separate it from the 38 because they were in danger now of just blowing up older guns. 0.12 inches longer. That's how much longer it is. And yep, that's it. Lead bullets make good small game and target rounds. Velocities, however, should not exceed 1,100 feet per second. Oh, that's for lead bullets, because they let up the barrel if they go faster than that. Like, melts the lead. Yeah, the Hornady handbook is very helpful for reloaders, definitely. Whoops. I don't know what I just had on film for, like, what I was just videoing for the last 40 seconds. Might have just been like the edge of a book cover. Anyway, I got a little teaser for you for what's going to be coming up next. And check this out. I'll show you. Coming up next is going to be this guy. So let's do a little side-by-side comparison. Am I going to be doing the same exact gun coming up next? Well, not really. Take a look. There's a couple of things that look a little different. Can you find one? About the Model 19 has an underlug right here, and there's no underlug here. There's a difference. Do we know? Well, stay tuned. That's just a tease. Model 19. Gotta love it. This is Americana right here. And obviously, we're going to be back next with another Smith & Wesson. Once you start talking about these things, it's hard to stop. And I think I have a little piece of a range video that I may or may not attach here. I think it's kind of weird. I'm not even sure if I had the gun in the video. I don't know. I tried. It's real hard. I got to get this surreptitious footage. Nobody lets you video in a range, so I got to kind of sneak around to get it done. So it's really hard to set it up straight. But I do what I can for you. And that's it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good one. Those are some double taps right there. It's real good. Those are some double taps.